with Next Level Occupational Therapy here on our Next Level OTPT and SLP podcast. I am joined by Anthony, Megan, and Alicia. And we have some great topics today. So we're going to or great questions. So we're just going to kick it right off so we can see if we can get through a few more questions today. So the first question that we have is, was there a moment when you realized you wanted more than being an employee? Who wants to take that one first?
I can take it. I do actually remember the moment, to be honest, and I said it out loud. I was working in inpatient rehab. I loved my job, but going through college, undergrad, I was with somebody that owned businesses, and I was like, gosh, I kind of like this. And I remember I was in the lunchroom at the hospital, and I was talking to a friend, and they're like, oh, what are you going to do in 5 years? I'm like, I'm going to own a business someday. And they're like, oh, are you now? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, okay, well, I'll be your employee someday. And I'm like, all right. He never became my employee, but I vividly remember that. And actually, when I started my business, he goes, Megan Dooley, I remember when you told me in the lunchroom that you were going to start a business. And I was like, yeah, you got to say those things out loud. And it came to fruition. But I really do think it was kind of bred into me when I dated somebody that owned businesses. When I was probably 17, he bought the first business. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Alicia,
I didn't have that moment. For me, no, I didn't really care about being an employee versus, I never really thought about it as being a business owner. I just saw it as meeting a need of the community and that it would be a way to grow income. So I didn't have that shift of like, I have to be my own boss. I didn't mind being an employee. Unless they bothered me about productivity, then I did. But for the most part, yeah, I did not really think of it that way. And of course, now I can't imagine not being my own boss and being an employee. It's been way too long since I've worked for anybody. So now I wouldn't want to go back. But it really wasn't part of my shift originally, or even in my view of what my future looked like.
Anthony?
Yeah, I'll say, I have a different perspective because I'm not a therapist by training or anything. I knew for me that it was more so from an impact side of things. I knew that trying to help build our business and kind of build our therapy business, it was going to ultimately limit me personally because I just had a very small window of growth there. And really, I needed to impact more people than just us, right? I needed to help improve, I wouldn't say patient outcomes, but kind of processes and just help support more businesses other than us in order for myself to grow. And so that was kind of the realization for me and what it took to kind of break out of just that box, if you will.
I was thinking about this because I don't really think there was that moment for me, even though I love doing things and building things. And, like I've sold about anything and everything that we've talked about before, like Pampered Chef, Jamberry, Tupperware, whatever. When I worked for someone else, I was really happy and taking on more of a leadership role. Setting up new, outpatient in the home type practices in assisted livings or doing new programming in all of these places. And, that kind of filled my bucket. And then I shifted over from working as an OT then to teaching. Even there, I still really liked it. It wasn't until I started learning more about the other possibilities out there. And, it really wasn't until the guy told me I should start my own business that I decided. But now I absolutely could not be an employee. In fact, I don't think anyone would want me to be an employee because I would be miserable and I would want to do what I want when I want it. And I definitely am no longer employable. So that's interesting that we all definitely have different places to be. But do we all agree that we can no longer work for someone else? Or do you guys feel like you could?
It would be very hard. Yeah.
It would be hard because I think what we find is if I don't do this, someone else is going to make decisions for me, right? And like, that's not bad. I mean, somebody is always doing that, but for me, is that what I want? And not anymore. It's like once you kind of open that door, you don't really want to walk back out of it, and it's not the same anymore.
Yeah, I just can't imagine. I think some of it also impacts even like my kids and even my feelings too, because like now that my two oldest graduated, now they have to get real jobs, right? And they have to work when they're supposed to work, even though one's working for me, but so she does have more flexibility. But you know, just them, they have to go to the real world versus they know, like for me, I haven't been able to, or I've been able to get to all their events or do the things I want when I want. So yeah, it's tough.
Sometimes it takes, walking that side to realize that you need to do something different, because it's not to say that this is easier, but it does come with more freedoms if you can act on it in a different way and do things differently. You're not beholden to anybody but yourself.
Right. And I will say that I do have those moments where sometimes I do also have that little glimpse. Sometimes it would just be easier to work for someone else because I don't have to deal with all of it. But in the reality, I know I could never do that. So
yeah. Because the thing is, there's always something on your mind, right? But like most of that stuff is energizing more than it's draining. Like, oh, I have to make some updates to my website. Okay, that sounds like a lot of work, but actually, it's mine and it's my choice to do that. And there's something about that being on my to-do list that is exciting in a way as well. So, yeah.
If anyone is listening or watching and you can comment, share if there was a moment in your course of being an employee when you realized this. And if you are a private practice owner, could you go back to being an employee? So on the other side of things, next question is, what fears keep therapy professionals from pursuing ownership? So maybe they, realize they want to be more than employee, but they're also fearful of it. So what fears do you guys think that keep most people from doing this?
I think it's easy for people to get comfortable, right? You get into this, we're almost like trained and coerced into this idea that you do 40 hours, you get this amount of money, right? It's predictable, it's dependable. You do your job, you get paid. Ownership is not like that. I could speak from experience of starting our systems practice where you're kind of embarking and trying to craft and build something. There's a lot of unpaid time. There's a lot of days where you're going to struggle. You're going to question your sanity. You're going to question if this is right. And that's part of it. The freedom is on the other side. You've got to get there, but the road is sometimes hard and it's paved with all kinds of things that, you don't want to walk on, but you're forced to. And that's just the life that you've got to do. So I think that's one thing that it's not what stopped us, but I can see that being a fear of that kind of, you have to have faith more so than predictability in everything. It's intimidating.
Uncertainty is hard. Yeah. I think that's just a big piece of it. And a lot of times people think things that aren't true because they're not getting the support that they need, or they, read answers on Facebook and they think it's, things are just going to magically show up, and, that you don't have to do as much work as you do just to get it set up. But I will say, like, if I were in a position now to start my business, I would have a lot of fear. I'm older. I'm now divorced, whereas I was married when I started it. So there's this other income in the household, and healthcare is expensive. Like, that right there is just a huge piece. I'm paying most of it out of pocket. And I would think twice about it because that uncertainty about what kind of income I'd have. as a single person who has to pay for all this healthcare as I age, that's a whole nother thing. So that's, I think, a fear a lot of people have as well.
Megan, what do you think? Or what do you see?
I think too, though, like Anthony kind of hit on it. I think sometimes we think only about the negative, about like, what if somebody sees me fail? But truly, what if somebody sees me succeed? What if your kids see you succeed? What if your friends see you succeed? We don't ever say that to ourselves. We're living the minute we say, I think I want to do this. It's like a little mouse. Like, I think I want to start a business, instead of like, I'm going to start a freaking business and I'm going to rock it. And I'm saying this because I also was like super excited to do it. And then like the mouse caught up with me and I'm like, what am I doing? And the imposter syndrome. But I think if people could say, you don't go off the handles and just do something without thinking about it. But if our verbiage to ourselves was like, what if somebody sees me do this? And gosh, wouldn't we like tackle it even more versus hiding? Because I think there's a lot of people who take on this challenge, kind of like Alicia said, like middle age and like, they're like getting after it, and they do have kids in college and they have all these responsibilities and care and all this stuff. And it's like, wow, that's scary, because I have decided to take care of people, other humans, but gosh darn it, what if they get to watch you do that and you do something with it and the whole family is involved, or I don't know. I think that's a big thing that I think holds people back, of like, Anthony just said it, I have to be responsible. I got to show up. I got to work 40 hours. Alicia just said it. I need healthcare. I need retirement. I need all this. Do we need to like look at that differently and how that comes into our lives? And I think that's the scary part about it. Nobody teaches us the other side of 40 hours and all the benefits that come with it, because I see a lot of people where their 40-hour-a-week jobs eat their souls and they retire and they're miserable and they wish they would have done something different. So I don't know, long-winded, but
I love that, Megan.
Yeah, no.
Wish I had the little clapping icons that we
I know, I need those little noises.
Yeah.
100%. All of those things are true. I mean, I like when you said, the fear of uncertainty is huge for people. Do you think that some people don't have enough fear that do start a business?
Ooh, that's a good question.
100%.
I mean,
100%.
maybe. I think some people, it kind of comes back to that type A personality too, of like, you almost have to look at it from, it's not a fear of what if I fail, it's a fear of what if I don't do it. Am I trapping myself? You have to kind of break the conformity that comes along with being an employee. And that can be very hard to do, but some people are just born to do that in a sense, right? They gravitate towards that. And some people have to learn that. And running a business is not you're born with it, or it's not a trait necessarily. I want to clarify. It's a learned skill, and it's something that it's hard, but I think it's important that you have people in your corner too. And you can't do it by yourself. The truth is, you have to have some level of accountability and some level of, people that you can confide into, whether you find that in your family or you find that through a program. You've got to find people to help in some capacity.
I was going to say something similar. I don't think it's a matter of not having enough fear. I think it's a matter of not getting the support or not getting yourself educated. Like, we don't become therapists without education. Becoming a business owner, some people think they have to go get an MBA, which you absolutely do not have to do. In fact, that's going to not help you probably at all. Maybe a smidge, but not enough to really get yourself off the ground for how much you would pay for that education, if that's what you want, is to be a business owner. But I think that's the missing piece. I think that it's not a matter of not having fear. It's a matter of just not getting educated about the things they need to know. Yeah.
Well, and I just think, especially recently, like all of these announcements of fraud and abuse that are coming out. They're coming out like rapid fire, and with healthcare, it's just some people don't really consider that even though you're a cash-based practice, there's still rules and regulations you need to follow. And sometimes I wonder, like, maybe those people should fear a little bit more because they're just totally going rogue, but yeah. But then we have the other side that some people are so scared of it that limits them. Like, how many people are, I mean, even myself, like, so scared about Medicare and going in network with Medicare or dealing with Medicare that, it kind of kept me back when Medicare is one of the easier ones to deal with, right? So yeah, I was just curious on your thoughts about that. But okay, great. Any other things about fears? I mean, I see everything you guys already said. I mean, fear of failure, a lot of people fear of, not having the health care or taking care of their kids or so, being able to do that. But we're not safe when we're working for other healthcare systems. I mean, how many people that we have helped start a business help because they lost a job, so, you're not always protected when you have a job either. So this goes kind of into what what you guys actually talked about then is, what is the value of learning from people a few steps ahead of you?
Well, the thing is, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, so the people who are already in it know most of the stuff that you wouldn't know to even ask. There's a lot you can Google. There's a lot you can ask through like Facebook groups, but you don't know if those answers are right. Like, I mean, why would anybody think that Medicare is going to force you to be in network with them? Like, why would you even think to ask that? You wouldn't think to ask that question, right? If somebody didn't tell you that, you could go start taking cash from people who are Medicare age and, have Medicare and not realize that you're making a huge mistake. And so there's a lot of things like that you just don't know. So, and I would say, like, even the people that have come to me, I've had people that just want to do like a mentoring session, and they'll come to me and they'll ask these questions. I don't know what you don't know and what you do know. So you can come to me and I can spend an hour with you, and I might say some things that might help you. But like, the thing about having a nice structured program is then we know all the things you know and you don't know. And so that's the piece that I really struggled with when I was starting, because I learned by Google and books and podcasts. Like, that was it. And so there were a couple people out there doing stuff, and so I did learn a little bit from them, mostly their podcasts and stuff. And I did join a program that ultimately wasn't very helpful, but I didn't know what missing pieces I had. I will say, even now, like, I still learn some things from Kara, just from being a coach in this program and seeing things she posts and things that are on our emails. And so I think there's just, when you have somebody who knows what they're doing, it makes sure you avoid the gaps that you may have in your learning, to make sure that you are making the most of what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%.
I think it can all be summarized in one word: experience. Experience is very expensive. You either, if somebody already knows what happens if you go down that road, it's because it either took them a long time to learn it, find the answer, pay for the answer, or build the answer. So from my side, I know that there's a lot of things that we tried. There's a lot of things that we did that if we had just asked somebody who had done it, it would have saved us a lot of headaches and stress and money in the long run, right? So it's really about gaining perspective. I think if you're dealing with something like in a challenge, or like trying to figure out something, it can feel like you're the only one dealing with it. But if you talk to somebody, if you've got a community of people, and that's kind of what we relate back to, that you can go to, somebody may have already been there. Somebody have already solved it. And that's when you can probably realize that, oh, that's just normal. Like, everybody goes through that. Or it just gives you a shortcut, and it kind of helps you expedite that growth and shortens the learning curve, I think, in the long run too.
Yeah, 100%.
And your loss of income at times. Like, yeah. I mean that sincerely. Like, I'm always like, I had, I had coaching and all those things, but things always morph and change. And you're just like, I vividly remember sometimes being like, well, because of having a structured program, I caught something that I lost some income on, but I caught it sooner than later. And that's what we had to go off of. We had to say like, this wasn't great, but it could have been way worse. Like what was going on. And I think like, it's not always just financial. It's your headaches. It's your worries. It's getting audited. I have other things that I do outside of this, and some people are like, what's that? I've never heard of that. And I'm like, oh no, I can't even go down the rabbit hole of the things you need to know, that other people have already done. And I think people who go before us too, we also have to realize people are on different journeys, and that we can't get big headed either or get overinflated too, because just like Alicia said, she still learns stuff. And so being open, finding mentors that are still open to learning and that actively show you that they're learning makes me trust them more versus, oh, I'm sitting back, I've already figured this all out and I don't have to learn anymore, is a huge green flag that you should have them on your team.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I mean, constantly learning and evolving and changing and adapting. I mean, that's huge. No, I mean, I just think it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, obviously, when I first started, I didn't really think that way because I didn't know any better. But I see the people that were able, I think of all of the experiences, like Anthony said, that we've had, and we're able to help people so they can make the next best decision based off of our experiences that really ultimately saves them so much time, money, and stress down the road. But that also leads me to, we also have people that we work with. And I know me, for example, with my coaches, that even though we share that experience or our thoughts with them, they still choose to kind of go the long way around. And I mean, I can remember thinking back to my coaches telling me some things I needed to do, but did I listen? No. And then do I wish I would have listened? Yes, it would have saved me a ton of time. But sometimes, sometimes it's interesting what decisions people make, even though we have all of that experience to share with them. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think everybody's going to make mistakes. I don't think there's one business owner who's perfect, who can go get the answer and be 100% right. Or again, I'm not going to pretend that I've got all the answers either. It's kind of deciding, as an owner, it's a matter of deciding whether you're going to make your own mistakes or you're going to learn from someone else's, and kind of be willing to be coachable too, and kind of say, I'm going to take that advice, or I hear you, but I really want to see for myself. And sometimes you pay the price as a result of that, right? So sometimes it's easy to pretend like you know it all, or like you're going to get a different result somehow, but it doesn't always work out that way more often than not, right?
Well, I think it's like, go ahead, Alicia.
Go ahead.
Nope.
Okay. I was going to say, I think one of the things that I really try to impart on people, like, I think that is super important if you are looking for coaching, is the team, because you might find different opinions among all of us about, should you have your prices on your website, for instance? Well, we can all give your opinion and our own opinions about why and yes or no and that kind of thing, or whatever it is you're seeking an opinion about. And then you can weigh those pros and cons on whether you want to actually take that step, whatever you want to do. And I think when you have one person that's your coach, like that, to me, that's a huge red flag. Having been through that and spent a ton of money to pay somebody to coach me, who ended up having a nervous breakdown, did not fulfill our contract, got a little bit back, said he was going to do more, didn't do the more. So I have huge concerns about like any kind of program that just has one person in charge. What happens if that person has a medical issue even? Like, what's going to happen to all this money that you're paying them? And the reality is you should be paying a decent amount of money for someone who's giving you the level of support that you really need. So, it shouldn't be just a couple $100 to learn whatever you need to learn. it's going to be quite a bit. So, and it's worth it because there's so much information. So that's just something I like to say when I have the opportunity, because that was a very disappointing experience I had when I spent a lot of money on something that was ultimately not fulfilled, and didn't get a variety of opinions either, because it was one guy. So
yeah, I love that you point that out, because that's huge. I mean, we all have different experiences and perspectives, and there's how many times do we send emails back and forth, or in coaching calls we all share our perspectives, so in order to help the people we help make the best decisions for them. So
yeah, and you're going to see something that I didn't see, and we're all going to see something that maybe someone else missed from our own personal experience that will help the people in the program. So,
and that's one of the biggest things when you have your own business and you're doing the day in and day out. You don't really take that step back and really deep dive looking in. Plus, you're so biased. So just having someone else looking in, and they're able to catch so many other things. And then by having a team, we all see different perspectives of it. So, Megan, what were you going to say?
Well, I just think that, Anthony you all brought it up, but I think the purpose of having coaches too is you can still branch off. You can still be creative. Alicia's done it. Kara's that we've all done it. I've done it. But you need that tree trunk. You need that foundation before you branch. Otherwise, you're those darn, trees that just break off into chunks because it has 5 different roots coming out. And I think that's where people get very impatient, because the beginning part of starting a business is not very fun. And it's not very rewarding, because there's nothing tangible happening. We're like, where's the money? Where's this? Where's that? It's exhausting. And it can be, feel like forever, even though it's not. But I think we have to build that tree trunk. Like, you can't just branch off and take off. It will not work. And so I think you guys all hit that. But people shouldn't be afraid that, oh my gosh, I went into a program and I can never be creative, or I can never take a risk. You absolutely can, but we want you to have the funds built up. We want you to understand the processes. We want you to have the email process in place. We want to have all these things in place so that if it doesn't go well, it's a branch fell off the tree, not the entire tree went down. And I think that's the big point of having a group, is we have to build that with you.
I love that analogy. Awesome. Well, this leads into our final question today then. So now you've built a business, you either have help or support or you don't, but sometimes people get to the point where they get burnt out. Okay. So what recommendations, or what do you guys think what do you do to avoid burnout while growing a business?
say no when you need to say no.
That's huge.
That's a hard one to learn. I cannot think of the name of the book off the top of my head. Really great book that talks about the ceiling and the floor, and wherever your lowest yes is. If you keep saying yes to those little things, like, the person who wants you to send an email that's 15 minutes every time you have a session with their kid, or whatever, those kind of things. When you're saying yes to all that, all this unpaid labor, those are the things that can burn you out very quickly. So saying no is a huge one.
Power of no is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that your goal, and I think a lot of people go into it and they kind of it's just you. Even if you have a team working with you and supporting you, it is your business. It's your baby in a way, right? And a lot of times what happens is I see people go, okay, well, I'm just going to get better at doing it all. And I'm going to get better and better. And I'm going to learn more. And I'm going to keep juggling this and keep juggling that. And that should never be what you really get into, I guess. That's not the end goal. It's really how can I juggle everything forever? It's how can you build systems and build people around you to help shed some of that weight of responsibility of not carrying everything yourself, and making it where, you can rely on other people, and there's things in place to help automate some things, right? And delegate responsibilities. That's otherwise you are going to burn out, because you can only grow to so much and handle so much before it all just becomes too much for you.
And don't you feel like that people don't burn out starting the business? Like you said, they burn out when they don't know how to set boundaries. And like Alicia talked about the ceiling, I think it's another thing too, I think it'd be in people's best interest when they start their business to be real about how much it's going to truly cost to get it up and running, and not just this month by month, like, oh my gosh, okay, I spent this much this month to have this program. No, like, do an analysis that I'm realistically going to give myself a year of going negative, maybe 6 months, I don't care. But then how can I build that back in a realistically healthy way? Because we see so many people get super busy and they don't set a ceiling like Alicia's talking about. And that's where they burn out. They're not getting things done. They can't keep up. And they're like, first I wanted all of this, now I have too much. And I think if people could say, okay, once I hit 1 year and I'm at zero, I'm at an even rate, how can I strategically build in a stepping way instead of climbing up the mountain and then like blowing up at the top, because that's kind of what happens, would really help people a lot from burning out, to be like, it took you a year to get here. You're not going to get it all back in 1 month, in 2 months. Like, it takes time. I think that would be helpful.
I am absolutely horrible at this. So if my family's watching, they're going to probably laugh. But self-care is extremely important. And we see a lot of therapists that are with their business going full force 7 days a week, and they're not taking time off. They're not going on vacation, or they're, and I mean, I can say, yes, I'm not very good at it, but I do still make sure I do a lot of fun stuff and, do take my vacations and so forth. But I just self-care, like, people just don't always put that front and center. And especially with healthcare professionals, right? We know how important our sleep is and so forth. But again, all of you that know me that are messaging me at like midnight or 1 a.m. know that I'm not always the best on that myself, but I'm trying to improve. But I think self-care is huge, setting boundaries, being able to say no. I actually was just having this discussion with one of our therapists who has a very successful business. And she was mentioning she really needs to hire another staff. And she's a good example. She had a person that she made an offer to, and someone else in that situation might have maybe bent, but she knew what she could afford and so forth. So she really stuck with it. And it's frustrating when you put that much time and effort into trying to bring a therapist on and you can't come to a mutual agreement, but she needs someone. But she was talking about, I just have a tough time taking time off because I know we have all the clients and I need to see them. But you also have to be okay with taking time off. I mean, we can't work every day in, even though we have clients. I kind of talked about, it's like you're taking your own PTO, right? But some people get in that mindset that if they're not working, they're not making money. You still running your business and taking time for yourself. It's going to help you make more money in the long run anyways, because you're taking care of yourself. So. Okay, so we hit our 30 minutes, a little bit over, but any final thoughts that you guys have today?
It's, I guess to tie it all together, it's really, I mean, I know we talked about from employee to entrepreneurship there. It's really about building your environment around you where you can do your great work, right? Like all the work that you've been trained to do. It's about taking those skills and what do you do to essentially embark on your own process of creating that. And I think it kind of revolves around community, but also self-reflection and taking care of yourself too. So it's a lot, And I know we kind of covered a lot of ground there, but you have to pick what you
One
want.
thing you mentioned with the community, I mean, I just think your network is huge. And really early on with my coach, you know, they always talked about your network equals your net worth. But just the overall well-being of having people that can support you and help you when things come up, because you can follow a checklist to start and build a business, but there's always something that's going to come up. If you don't have the support to help guide you along the way, that's when it gets tough. So, well, thank you guys all for joining us. If you're not in our Next Level OT PT SLP Facebook group, please join us. Check out our YouTube channel. You can go to our website. We do have a lot of free resources you can download, so you can at least get a viewpoint of the things that are involved when you're getting up and going with your business, or if you're looking at doing something else besides working in a traditional type setting. So everyone have a great day, and we'll